In this video, I'm going to talk about my biggest regret in my baseball career. I've been wanting to do this for a while. So, I had a very good career. I played at a high level when I was younger, won national championships at 12, went to Cooperstown 3 times. I was, all CIF in high school, played Division One, went to the Masters University and was all conference a couple of years there, drafted by the Cubs. Made it up to Double A with them, 5 years professionally total. Overall, had an amazing career, and I don't really live with any major regrets about it. But there's definitely one that I have, and that's kind of the whole impetus and reason for doing my program and preaching the way I do. Because when I look back at my career, I realize that I was at my absolute best before I was ever on a radar gun. I was definitely one of the top pitchers in the country, at 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, winning national championships, dominating the best teams. And I wasn't bigger than anybody. I mean, I'm not, the tallest or the biggest guy. And I wasn't throwing the hardest in the country, but I just pitched. I just had great command. I changed speeds, had a great changeup, and I just got batters out. That was my focus because that's what I learned when I was younger. I was reading books about just getting batters out, about just hitting your spots, being like a Greg Maddux type guy. I learned the knuckleball when I was younger, but I didn't throw it in games. And that's along with the radar gun and focusing on velocity, not throwing the knuckleball is a huge regret because I learned it when I was young and I knew it was good, but why wasn't I throwing it in games? And the reason is because nobody knows anything about the knuckleball. And so that's a sad thing. So I just had it in my back pocket pretty much, until pro ball, until I really needed it. And then I had to start throwing it in games when I had it my whole career. And so think about this from my perspective as someone who has gone through everything that 99% of people want to go through, winning the national championships when you're 11 and 12. I did that. I started the national championship games just focusing on command, getting batters out, not trying to throw as hard as I could or anything. So I did that. So I know how that works. I know how high school works. I know how playing Division 1 works. And then I got drafted and I realized I had to essentially revert back to when I was at my best when I was 12 years old, where I didn't think about velocity because now you're up against the big boys in pro ball and velocity won't save you. Okay. Maybe I had enough in college, but essentially there reaches a point where velocity alone won't save you. And so the sooner you can learn that lesson, the better. So I wasn't on the radar gun until between freshman and sophomore year of high school, and that's when I lost my way a little bit as a pitcher. And if I just never was on the gun and just pitched like I did when I was a kid, I would have been way better. In fact, I when I was at my best, when I was like 13 or 14, I had a really good coach that just focused on command, hitting spots, and it was like really just motivating. He was a really good coach, played a little bit of pro ball himself. And he later confessed to me that he always wondered if he should have told me to try to throw harder because I just throw with such little effort and just trying to get batters out and hit the mitt that they wondered, would it help if we just told him to rear back and throw? But I was having so much success and I was actually still throwing, pretty firm, but they decided not to ever say anything. And so I was like one of the best in the entire country at just pretty much average size. And of course, I'm going up against guys that are, 6 foot at 12 years old or 6'2" at 14 years old. And I'm not even that tall now. And that's just with the mindset of just get batters out. And I had always believed that when I was younger. I remember before huge games when I was younger thinking, well, they're not going to hit me if I don't throw any balls over the plate. And that was my mindset. And then the radar gun comes along and everything changes. And, You start focusing on what's your velocity, and everything starts to go downhill, and you don't even realize it because it's just a small thing, trying to throw a little bit harder, and you go half a mile an hour harder, but your command degrades a little bit, but you don't notice it. Your arm doesn't feel as good, but you barely notice it because you can attribute it to something else. Mechanics aren't as good, and that makes your arm not feel good. Everything kind of degrades. Movement's not as good because you're not staying close. You're not out front, and so you have to throw harder to succeed because your movement's not good. And then because of all that degrading, then all of a sudden you lose your changeup, which I lost my changeup because of trying to throw harder, and then I didn't have feel on my pitches. And then you lose the feel of your breaking balls. Instead of really being able to get out front on it, get good spin, all of a sudden you're pulling off a little bit and it's hanging. So you're losing everything, compromising the health of your arm to do what? To gain an extra half a mile an hour or mile an hour? I mean, it is the devil's bargain. And I guarantee you it is the devil's bargain as someone who's done everything that you're trying to do. But then beyond that, personally, I had the knuckleball when I was a kid, but no one knew anything about it. So I never threw it in games. I'm like, man, if I could just go back in time and just pitch like I did when I was 12 years old, 13-year old, 14 years old, just hitting the mitt and throwing the knuckleball, man, everything would just be so much easier. And obviously, we all would make different decisions if we go back in time. But that's why I'm teaching the way I'm teaching because in to be fair, most guys on here that, are talking about baseball on Instagram, they played a little college ball, blew out their arm, and they're macho. They're telling you, okay, yeah, this is what you have to do to play in college. When you play like a number of years of pro ball, I played 5 years of pro ball, and you see other guys that played a lot of pro ball. There's a few of them. Playing college doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Like this is the big milestone. It's just a different mental perception because we know that it's better to be a good pitcher and you'll be able to have a healthier arm, play at a higher level, and then ultimately that's what it takes. And then you see guys that play a long time, they learn to pitch with less, and that's why you see I'll put videos of guys throwing 86 in the big leagues. And people are like, "Oh, well, he learned to pitch and that's why he can do it." Well, exactly. Why not learn to pitch? Learn to pitch when you're young and then don't just chase velocity because you're not going to end up throwing slower by not chasing velocity. You'll actually throw harder because your arm's going to be healthier, a lot healthier. So I guarantee you if you follow the path of becoming a pitcher, good mechanics, hitting your spots, taking arm health seriously, and learning the knuckleball, if you truly want to get an unfair advantage, start from a young age or however old you are now. Don't wait. Everything in the baseball world is yours for the taking because very, very few are following this route. And so, honestly, it's never been easier than it is right now. And that's why we have so many guys in our program having incredible success.